Okay.
Created .js dash order dash summary, and we'll use the property dot inner capital HTML, and we'll change the three file checkout.js, which created a script tag to load our JavaScript. Man 3 files. In checkout.html, we removed all the HTML that was written manually. And then at the bottom, we created a script tag to load our JavaScript. And then we also changed cart.js and added some default values to work with. And then we created checkout.js, which loops through the cart, creates the HTML, and puts it on the page. So let's create a message to describe our changes. Generate HTML for the order summary and commit. Next, let's open our project again. And before we continue, we actually have two issues that we need to fix. The first issue is that the price is displaying as 1 decimal here instead of 2. And the second issue is that these delivery options are actually shared between the two products. For example, if I click this delivery option here, it will actually unselect for the second product. So they're sort of shared. Between the two products. But what we actually want is for each product to be able to select its own delivery options. So we're going to fix these two issues next. First, let's focus on the price, and we want to display it. First issue is that the price is displaying as 1 decimal here instead of 2. And the second issue is that these delivery options are actually shared between the two products. For example, if I click this delivery option here, it will actually unselect for the second product. So they're sort of shared between the two products. But what we actually want is for each product to be able to select its own delivery options. So we're going to fix these two issues next. First, let's focus on the price, and we want to display it in 2 decimals. So we actually learned how to fix this on the home page using the method toFixed. So we're going to use the same code here. Let's go into our code, and we'll open our files, and let's open checkout.js again. So here, we're going to scroll down to where we display the price, which is here, price cents. And to show this in 2 decimal places, we're going to surround this with brackets to make sure we calculate it first, and then use the method .toFixed, brackets, and then 2 to show 2 decimal places. If we save, and then open our project, now the price is displaying correctly. Before we move on, we're going to learn how to better organize this code. So if we go back, so notice that we're using this code inside the checkout page, as well as inside amazon.js, which is the home page. So we can actually share this code between the 2 files, so we don't have to repeat it. And to do that, we can use modules. So let's open checkout.js again. And what we'll do is we're going to create a function that does the same thing as this code. And then we can share this function between the 2 files. So let's create a container. So here, parameter count bracketing. So first, port this function is we divided by 100, and then we're going to subtract. around this file. So first, and format of this me grip.js. We're going to go into the utils folder, and then we're going to go and locate money.js. So for modules, if we want to start in the current folder, our file paths have to start with format the same. So now let's go back into our code, and we're going to share this function inside Amazon.js as well. We'll utils page, and you can see that the prices are displaying as 2 decimal places. And that's it. Boost repetition project. The delivery options are shared between the 2 products, but we want each product to choose its own delivery options. So to fix that, let's go back into our code, and I'm just going to resize it here so we can see it side by side. And we'll open checkout.js again, and we can close this for now. So this is an HTML element called a radial selector. And here's the code for a radial selector. So the way that radial selectors work is that if a set of radial selectors have the same name, then we can only select one of them. So for example, if these 3 radial selectors have the same name attribute, then we can only select one of them. Now, if the 3 at the top have one name, and the 3 at the bottom have a different name, then we can select one from the first 3, as well as one from the second 3. Now, what's the problem with the radial selectors here? Well, let's take a look at the code for these selectors. To do that, we're going to right-click one of them, and then inspect, and then click the top left, and click one of these selectors to get the HTML for these selectors. To do that, we're going to right-click one of them, and then inspect, and then click the top left, and click one of these selectors to get the HTML code. So here we have the code for the radio selector, and you can see that the name of the selector is delivery option 1. And now if we click the top left again, and find one of these bottom selectors, you'll notice that these also have the name delivery option 1. So all 6 of these have the same name attribute. That's why we can only select one of these 6 at a time. So what we actually want to do is we want the first 3 selectors to have one name, and the second 3 selectors to have a different name. So let's figure out how to give these a different name. So inside the console, we can see the code for this selector, and we have a name attribute delivery-option-1. So let's actually find this name in our code. So we'll go to our code editor, and Control F or Command F to search for code, and we'll search for delivery-option-1. And if we scroll down, you'll notice that every time we're generating these radio selectors, we're always using the same name, delivery option 1. So every product is going to have the same name for the radio selectors, and all of these are going to be shared. So what we actually want to do is, instead of using the name delivery option 1 every time, each product is going to use a different name for these 3 selectors. So one way we can do that is, instead of the number 1 every time, we can replace it with the product's ID, because the ID is always unique for each product. So let's substitute using $ and curly brackets the product.id. And then down here as well, instead of using the name 1 every time, we're going to substitute product.id. And actually, we use the name matching product. So we'll scroll down and just update this to matching product. And then down here, matching product. And as well down here, instead of 1 every time, substitute the matching product.id and save. So now these 3 radio selectors ID matching product, but we use a different name for these 3 selectors. So one way we can do that is, instead of the number 1 every time, we can replace it with the product's ID, because the ID is always unique for each product. So let's substitute using $ and curly brackets the product.id. And then down here as well, instead of using the name 1 every time, we're going to substitute product.id. And actually, we use the name matching product. So we'll scroll down and just update this to matching product. And then down here, matching product. And as well down here, instead of 1 every time, substitute the matching product.id and save. So now, these 3 radio selectors will have a different name attribute than these 3 radio selectors. That means we can select 1 out of these 3, and we can select 1 out of these 3. So that's how we fix that error. Instead of using the same name, delivery option 1 every time, we're going to generate a name using the product's ID. So let's go into Git and save our changes. So in Amazon.js, we imported this shared function, and we use it to format the price in 2 decimal places. And then in checkout.js, we also used the shared function here, and we fixed the radio selectors. And then in this file, money.js, we created this shared function. So let's create a message to describe our changes, fix, price, formatting, and radio selectors, and commit. The last step in our process is to make it interactive. So I'm just going to close these for now, and I'm going to move it to the right again so we can see our project. And for the order summary, there's a few things we can make interactive. For now, we're going to start with this delete link. When we click this link, it should remove this product from the cart. So we're going to learn how to build this. So let's go back to our code. And first, let's add event list. Order summary, there's a few things we can make interactive. For now, we're going to start with this delete link. When we click this link, it should remove this product from the cart. So we're going to learn how to build this. So let's go back to our code. And first, let's add event listeners to all of these delete links. To do that, we're going to find the code for these delete links. So we'll right-click, inspect, and then in here, this is the code. So we're going to search for this class in our code editor, delete-quantity-link. So in here, let's open checkout.js, and we're going to Control F or Command F, and search for delete-quantity-link, which is right here. Next, we're going to add a class to these elements so we can add event listeners. So at the end here, let's add a class js-delete-link and save. And then at the bottom, we're going to scroll down, and then down here, we're going to add the event listeners. So first, we're going to select all the delete links on the page using document.query selector all brackets and then a string, and we're going to select a class using dot and the class js-delete-link. And then we're going to loop through all these links. So dot for each brackets and a function. And in here, it will give us the link every time. And then for each of these links, we're going to add an event listener. So link.add event listener brackets. And here, we're going to give a string and the event we want to listen for, which is a click, and then a function that we want to run when we click these links. So for now, let's just console.log string delete to make sure that it's working. So we'll save this, and then in here, we click these delete links. Let's just console .log string delete to make sure that it's working. So we'll save this, and then in here, we click these delete links, and then open the console, right-click, in. Inspect. We click to. So for now, let's just console.log string delete to make sure that it's working. So we'll save this, and then in here, we click these delete links, and then open the console, right-click, inspect. Console, we can see that it's working. So let's start with the first step. So when we click delete, how do we know which product we need to remove from the cart? So we learned how to do this for the added to cart button. We can attach the product's ID to the link element. So let's scroll up again to where the delete link is, which is right here. And we're going to attach the product's ID to this element using a data attribute. So at the end here, we're going to add data-product-ID. copy equals double quotes, and then here we'll substitute the matching product dot ID and save. And now that we attach the product ID to this element, we can get it in our JavaScript below. So let's scroll down. And then here, we're going to delete this line. And using the link element, we can get that product ID using link.dataset to access the data attributes. And we're going to access .product ID. And let's save this in a variable so we can use it later. Const product ID equals this value. And let's console.log this to see if it works. And save. So now if we go to the project and click the delete link for the first product, and then look at the console, inspect and console, it will show us the product's ID. If we click the second product's delete link, it will show us the product's ID. If we click the second product's delete link, it will show us the second product's ID. So now we have the ID that we need to remove from the cart. So now, how do we actually do that? So before we begin figuring that out, instead of writing all the code down here, let's actually create a function inside the cart.js to do this task. The reason we're going to do this is because cart.js is supposed to contain all the code that's related to the cart. So this will help us organize our code better. So let's open our files again, and we're going to open cart.js. And we're going to scroll to the bottom, and we're going to create a function for removing a product from the cart. So let's type function, and let's name it remove from cart, brackets and curly brackets. So this function will take a product ID, which we have, and remove it from the cart. So here, let's create a parameter for the ID, product ID, and now in here, we're going to figure out how to remove it. So here's one way we can do this. First, we can create a new array, and then we can loop through our cart, and then add each product to the new array, except for this product ID. So now let's convert these steps into code. So inside this function here, let's create a new array using const, we'll call it new cart equals an empty array. The next step is we're going to loop through our cart. So we'll type cart.for each brackets and a function, and we'll give it a parameter cart item. And the last step is that we're going to add each cart item to the new array, except if it has this product ID. So we can do that by checking if the cart item dot product ID is not equal to the the product ID that we're looking for, product ID. So if it's not equal to the product we're trying to remove, we're going to add it to the new cart. So new cart.push cart item. So the result of this loop is it's going to contain all the cart items that don't match this product ID. And that's the same thing as removing this from the cart. So now the last step is we're going to take our new cart and replace the cart up here. So we'll scroll down, and then here we'll make cart equal to our new cart. Because we're reassigning this variable, we have to scroll up and change it from const to let and save. So now that we created this function, let's use it in our checkout page. First, we're going to use the modules feature and export this function and save. And then inside checkout.js, we're going to import this function. So I'm just going to move this down to the bottom so we can see it side by side. So here. So in checkout.js, we're going to scroll up. And we're already importing from cart.js. So we're just going to import one additional thing by typing comma. And we're going to import this function, remove from cart and save. And then we're going to use this function at the bottom. So we'll scroll down, and then here we're going to remove from cart brackets, and we're going to give it the product ID we want to remove. So product ID. And lastly, let's just console.log the cart to make sure that this works. And we're going to click this delete link for the first product. So delete, and let's open the console. Right click, inspect the console, and now it's going to show us that we have one product remaining in the cart. And this product has a quantity of 1, which is the second product here. So by clicking that delete link, we successfully removed this product from the cart. So now if we refresh and try clicking the second delete link and look at the console, and then expand the cart, it will tell us that the remaining product has a quantity of 2, which is this product. So we successfully removed the second product from the cart when we clicked delete. So now let's go into Git and look at our changes. So we'll go into this section. I can close this for now, and we'll open Git, and it will tell from cart function. And then in checkout.js, we import that function, and then at the bottom, when we click the delete link, we're going to remove this product from the cart. Now, finally, we can remove this console.log, save, and we're going to put these changes into Git. So we'll type a message to describe our changes, delete products from cart when clicking delete, and commit. The second thing we have to do when we click delete is to update our HTML. So if we go back to our project, when we click delete, we want to remove this product from the page. So one way we can do this is, first, we're going to use the DOM to get the element we want to remove. And then we can use a method called .remove. So every element that we get from the DOM has a method called .remove, which removes it from the page. So first of all, how do we know which element to get from the page? So let's actually look at the HTML for one of these products. We're going to right-click, inspect, and then click the top left, and then click one of these products here. And this will give us the HTML. So these two products are represented by these two divs here, with a class cart-item-container. So one way to identify which product this is for is to add a special class to this element. And this class will contain the product ID. And then, if we go back to our code, and we open checkout.js, and scroll to the bottom, when we click delete, we have the product ID here. So we can use this to select that special class that we're going to add. So first, let's add that special class tip. We'll add a special class, JS, and then we'll .id. And let's put this class on a separate line, so the line is not too long. Now let's save. And now we're going to scroll to the bottom and use our code to get this class. So we'll scroll to the bottom. And here, we're going to use the DOM as well as this product ID to get that special class that we just added above. So here, we can type document.querySelector, brackets, and then inside, we'll type a string, and we'll select the class using a .js-cart-item-container- and then we're going to substitute the product ID. So because we want to insert something in here, we're going to switch this to a template string using backticks. And now we can substitute this product ID into the string. Product ID. So by creating the string like this, we're able to select the specific container that we need. So now let's save this in a variable so we can use it later. So const container equals this result. So for now, let's actually console.log this to see if it works. Console.log container and save, and then we'll go back to our project. So just move this here. And then in our project, if we click delete on the first product, and then check the console, right click, inspect, and the console, you can see that we're getting the correct element that we should delete. If we go down here and click this delete link, and check the console, you can see that this is also getting us the correct element that we want to delete. So now that we have the element we want to delete, the next step is to use the .remove method. So again, every element we get with the DOM has a method called .remove, which will remove it from the page. So if we go back into our code, down here, all we have to do is type out the element, container.remove, and brackets, and this will remove it from the page. If we save and try it out, so we'll go in here, we'll click delete on the first product, and it will remove it from the page. and this will remove it from the page. If we save and try it out, so we'll go in here, we'll click delete on the first product, and it will remove it from the page. If we click delete on the second product, it will also remove it from the page. So that's it. Now let's refresh to bring the products back, and that's how we make the delete link interactive and remove the products from the cart as well as from the page. So now let's save our changes into Git. We'll go to the Git section, and it will tell us that in checkout.js, at the top, we added that special class, which contains the product ID. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we created the string, which will get us the specific element that we want to remove, and then we use the .remove method. So now let's create a message to describe our changes. Delete products from HTML when clicking delete, and commit. The last thing we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to add local storage to our cart. So if we go back to our project, if we delete some products in our cart and then refresh, notice that our cart goes back to what it was before. And that's because right now, if we look at our code and we open cart.js, our cart is just a variable. And variables are reset when we refresh the page or when we go to a different page. So again, if we go back to our project and we go to a different page by clicking the top left, so on this home page, we can add as many products as we want to our cart. And if we go back to the checkout page, our cart will just get reset to whatever it is here. So that's the problem with just using a variable to save our cart. It gets reset when we refresh the page or we go to a different page. To solve this problem, we're going to use local storage to save our cart. So first, let's create a function for saving the cart to local storage, because we might want to reuse this code. So down here, let's create a function. We'll call it save to storage, brackets and curly brackets. And we're just going to save the cart to local storage using local storage dot set item brackets. And set item takes two strings. The first string is the name of whatever we want to save. So we're going to save our cart. So we're just going to call this the cart. And then the second string is the data that we want to save. So remember that local storage can only save strings. So to save our cart, we need to convert it into a string first. And we can do that using json.stringify brackets, and then inside we're going to give it the cart. So this will convert the cart into a string, and now we can save it in local storage. So now let's use this function. Whenever we update the cart, we need to save it to local storage so it doesn't get reset when we refresh the page. So here, when we add it to the cart, at the bottom, after we update the cart, we're going to use that function we created above. Save to storage and brackets. And also in the function remove from cart. So this function is also updating the cart. So after we update the cart, we're also going to save to storage and brackets and save. So now whenever we update the cart, we're going to save it in local storage. The last thing we need to do is at the top, at the beginning of our code, we need to get the cart from local storage instead of using this default value. So let's add some new lines here to separate the code for a bit. And here, we're going to get the cart from local storage. And we can do that using local storage.getItem and brackets. So getItem takes one string, and that is the name of what we saved earlier, which is the cart. So we're going to give it the string cart. So this will give us the cart that we saved. However, remember that local storage can only save strings. So it will give us the string version of our cart, and we need to convert it back into an array. To convert it back to an array, we can use the code json dot parse and brackets and close bracket. The last thing we need to do is when we first use the website, we might not have a cart in local storage. So if we don't have a cart saved, local storage will give us null. So in this situation, if this value is null, we want to give the cart a default value, which is this value below. So to give the cart a default value if it's empty, we can use an if statement by typing if, brackets and curly brackets, and in here, we can check if not cart. So if we don't have a cart in local storage, this will give us null. In this case, not null will become truthy, and we're going to run the code in this if statement. So if the cart is empty, we're going to make the cart equal this default value below. So let's just select this code, and we'll right-click, cut, and then in here, right-click and paste, and remove the extra line, and save. So now if the cart is empty, we'll just give it a default value. If we go back to our project and try out our code, so let's delete the first product and refresh the page, notice that the cart gets saved and the first product remains deleted. If we go to the home page and we add some new products and then go to our cart, notice that our cart is saved between pages.